طيب احنا آخر مرة يا شباب تكلمنا عن the different kinds of malicious programs وأنواعها المختلفة. We'll just go through very quickly how do you detect and prevent from those malicious programs. كل البروجرامز اللي تكلمنا عنها and we looked at, they're at the end trying to execute something and either alter the execution of different pieces or حتى موضوع change some existing programs to achieve some certain kind of goals. One of the ways to detect a malicious program إنه if there is a change in the executables اللي موجودة في السيستم. عندك في السيستمز مجموعة من executables, either اللينك حقهم يتغير, الكونتنت حقهم يتغير, التايم ستامب date and time عندهم يتغير. That is usually a sign that there is something different and something that have changed. Another thing, you can actually start to look and do some memory continuous check. What is going on in the memory? Is everything in the memory something that we know and expect? Or maybe there are some things in the memories that we don't know. Or أحيانا عندك unusual hardware behavior. Either the hardware is heating up or يعني CPU have a very intense processing power and it's unexpected. There is always the issue of false positives and false negatives. والموضوع هنا انه احيانا those false positive معناها انك you detect something as a positive threat or malicious program, لكنه تكتشف انه no, this is something normal. Or a false negative where there is a malicious program actually exists, but you don't detect it, and تتوقع انه that's a normal behavior and it ends up being a bad behavior. طبعا هذا يقودنا لأحد one of the oldest solutions of this is the antiviruses. So antiviruses usually have a list of bad signatures or behaviors of certain bad behaviors. So they look at that behavior and when they monitor activities or continue to scan, or the antiviruses also come when they start to see some change in the executables in the system. They ask you for permission. You go look like this app is right now being changed, being updated, being kada. So you need to give a permission. Also, sometimes this check happens at the virus at the gateway. لأنه دائما for malicious program to come, it needs to come from the outside. So أحيانا at the gateway of outside network packets coming to your internal network. Sometimes this has some malicious programs. So in the form of emails, attachments, or files, or things that you're getting from the network. The problem with the challenges that you find in those gateways, أحيانا عندك very unusual formats, or you're using something like HTTPS or end-to-end encryption or whatever, so you basically cannot see those viruses coming in. The preventions, there are multiple steps, and these are, although they might look very simple, but if you do them, you prevent yourself from the vast majority, over 90% or 95% of possible attacks. الأولى إنه keep your software updated. You have to always keep your software updated. Latest version softwares have vulnerabilities all the time, so you need to keep your different pieces of software updated. The second is only use clean software that is genuine, authentic, and you're not using cracked versions or pieces of software that you don't actually know. You don't know of the developer, the publisher, the company. You're only using some clean software. Sometimes you might you might have to take risk, whether a piece of software or visiting some websites that might be, have drive-by download وكذا. Always do that when you have least privilege. يعني when you're visiting some websites that are doing some research and doing some things outside, don't do it in your normal account where you have ممكن admin privileges. Create a guest account or a very limited account and go or do like the things that might be a little bit risky. The final component is make sure انه you have some access control. بمعنى there are some files that are not supposed to access the network, don't make them access the network. If you have some files that are not supposed to run, don't make them run. So do all kind of different protections as an access control to make sure nothing prevents the way that you look at things. طبعا في concept مرة مهم اسمه the cyber kill chain. الكونسبت هذا بكل بساطة يقول لك for any attack to happen, it needs to go through 7 steps. And you cannot go to step number 7 before 6. You can't go to 6 before 5. They need to happen in sequence. الأولى, an attacker needs to do some reconnaissance, whether they're targeting a specific victim or they're doing it at a mass. لازم في البداية يسوي عملية بحث وتشيك وتحري وتدقيق and what is called reconnaissance. بعدها they need to do some weaponization. بعدين هو when he does a reconnaissance, he needs to know how can I exploit these specific vulnerabilities. بعد هذا they need to deliver those weapons, those weaponized payloads that have some things that are weaponized. بعد delivering them, they need to execute them. They need to run somehow, whether in the user run them mistakenly or they get triggered by attaching themselves to other stuff. بعدين that they need to install themselves in the machine حتى they don't disappear after running and just continue to be there. بعد هذا they need the attacker needs to start controlling what the software does. It's either pre-programmed controlling, where they program the software to act on somehow, or this malware reaches back to the server and the command and control machine and gives the attacker the ability to control. آخر شيء taking the actions على الobjectives. الobjectives إنه ممكن إنها to encrypt the hard drive like ransomware, or steal some data and send it back, or steal some keystroke, or steal the username and password. Whatever the objectives are, this is where the last piece. So the beauty of the cyber kill chain إنك أنت like you might put some protections at the reconnaissance step, and then some protection at the مثلا command and control, and some protections at the installation. And if the attacker manages to overcome the protection اللي حطيته at step number 1, they still need to overcome step number 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 for them to reach to the final target. And the earlier you catch them, the better for you, because they have not learned so much about your system. So it's a really great and nice way to structure the thinking on how to build defenses. وهذه examples, right? Like this is an example how an attacker would use some tactics and techniques to go through each one of those steps. This is how would you الكلام اللي قلنا قبل شوي, how would you layer defense, right? So at the reconnaissance ممكن تستخدم firewalls, ACL, and all the way on action on targets, مثلا things like data loss prevention, which is in the disrupt phase. So you have always the ability to basically continue to put some protections at different stages. Either sometimes you want to detect, sometimes you want to deny and stop, sometimes you want to disrupt, sometimes you want to degrade and slow or make the damage less, sometimes you want to deceive them, or sometimes you just want to contain and make sure that the damage doesn't spill over and go all the way, right? So it depends, on every time you might put a goal in this matrix, things to detect and things to contain and things to deny, things to disrupt, and henceforth. So this is how basically to capture and know the different types of malware, and also being able to look how to defend against different kind of malware.